So this morning we want to climax this. This is actually the end of the Beatitudes as well. So thank you for walking through this with me. It's changed my life, no doubt about that. We're going to look at verse 11, actually begin reading at verse 10. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when they revile and persecute you and say all kinds of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so they persecuted the prophets who were before them. Keep reminding you that at the end, of course, of the Sermon on the Mount, he gives the response of the crowd. And I'm finding an identification with that response more and more and more as I look at this. The response was they were astonished, which you remember is the Greek explesso, the Greek word explesso, which literally means knocked out of your senses. He literally knocked them out of their senses. And it isn't just that this whole deal is mind-boggling. It's, this is difficult to get a hold of. It's not just that. It's that I'm finding myself, created within me this anxiety, this wanting to stay up all night and wring my hands, this idea that, man, there isn't a chance in the world that I'm going to measure up to this. And I know this is the prologue, which means this is the beginning of the whole sermon, and there's going to be a lot more to come. And if he does this kind of thing in the prologue, forevermore. What's the rest of this going to be like as we really get into it? And it just literally brings an anxiety and I don't know how to explain it, but a something inside of me that just says, I'll never pull this off on any kind of consistent, daily, all the time kind of a deal. There's no chance I'm going to make this. How will I ever reach this? How will I ever maintain this? How will I ever experience this at its depth on any kind of life experience? Maybe Sunday morning when we're singing, but how on the day in and day out life grind will I ever pull this off? And then when he comes to the whole deal of the persecution thing, maybe I could, make the meek thing because I'm scrawny, but it's okay, folks, the whole persecution thing. But here's what's so significant. Consistently, I promise you, every phrase, every statement of the Beatitudes and on into the Sermon on the Mount, he gives the key answer for the maintenance, the maintaining, the experiencing of this. He gives the answer. And you will never guess what the answer is. It is Jesus. He himself is the answer. That he doesn't give you the answer, that he himself is the answer. That he starts out right on the very first words are whacking you on the back saying, woo, congratulations. Wow, you are blessed. Whoa, you are the fortunate one. Wow, you are fortunate because you are there. You're not on a journey to go someplace. You're not, if you keep at it, you'll arrive there. It's not, be better and better and better. Well, discipline yourself. Well, get your act together and you will. This is, wow, you're in. Wow, you're there. Wow. And you know why you're there? Because you're absolutely hopeless. You are poor in spirit. You are destitute. You have no way. You have no resource whatsoever. And you're not that way because you sinned. You're that way because God made you that way. You're supposed to be that way. You big loser. Well, good for you. You're supposed to be. Why? So his unlimited resource could embrace you. And in the helplessness of your being and the embrace of his resource, you literally become the kingdom. You don't get in the kingdom. You are the kingdom. Oh, not you, but you and him. New creature stuff. And in that embrace, you become the kingdom. Congratulations. Because that embrace is the answer, which is all about him. In fact, that is so true As you begin to move through, mourn. Well, sure you should mourn. Why wouldn't you mourn? Good night, you are absolutely destitute. But in your mourning, the responsive mourning to your helplessness, you know what takes place? The Comforter comes and embraces you in comfort. Well, congratulations. He is the answer, for He is the Comforter. Oh, I know. Meekness begins to flow through you, not because you're puny, but because you have this overwhelming nature of God literally filling you. And how are you going to be meek on any kind of consistent way? Oh, because He's in the embrace. You're in the embrace with Him. And in the intimacy of His person, you experience that. Oh, I know you're hungry, but you're being filled. Why? You're being filled with Him. I know you're living in mercy and giving mercy. How could that be? Because He is your mercy, and He is constantly spilling it into you and through you. Oh, you're seeing God. Purity has come. Oh, you're peacemakers. You're the Son of God. Man, you got it made. You're in the embrace. He is the answer. Now, honestly, I think I can see that all the way through the first 7 Beatitudes, but this last one, this persecution thing, it's a little hard to see that with your hands in the stock, that bleeding back, though I've never been there. It's a little hard to see that when you're shipwrecked, thrown into the sea, nighted a day in a deep. Although I've never been there. But I can imagine. It's a little hard to see that He, in fact, to the point that you could rejoice and be exceeding glad. How could He be the answer in the middle of all of that? And that's where He brings us to in this phenomenal verse 11, verse 10, 11, and 12, that He's not just the answer in the first 7, He's the answer even in, this is true with persecution as well. And folks, He is so phenomenal that if it comes down to a choice, how could He be the answer in persecution? He is so phenomenal, if it comes down to a choice, how could He be so magnificent that in the hour of persecution, He could be the answer? Well, because when it comes down to a choice, are you getting this? How on earth could Jesus be the answer in the midst of pain, false accusations, unfairness, everything that isn't right? How could He be the answer in that? Because He is so phenomenal in that situation, because when it comes down to a choice between me, my safety, and Him, I am going to choose Him. Why would I choose Him? Because I'm not me without Him. That's what He proved in the first 7 Beatitudes. I am not me without Him. That the moment you take Him away from me, I'm back in my absolute helplessness. Well, I'm always that, but I'm floundering. I'm not me. I become a joke. I become a cartoon caricature of the person I really am built to be, and I like who I am in Him. Somehow I find my fullness here. Somehow I find myself blossoming here. Somehow I become the person I dreamed I could be, because I become the person He dreamed I could be. In this embrace, the first 7 Beatitudes, and sure, I'm going to choose pain and agony. Sure, I'm going to choose in the midst of crisis. Sure, I'm in the midst of distress. Sure, I'm going to choose Him instead of me and my safety. Why? Because I'm not Him. I'm not me without Him. I'm not me without Him. And somehow I shrink. Somehow I become less. I cannot possibly. That's what He's telling us, ladies and gentlemen, that you cannot possibly make it without Him. And as my very lungs cry out for oxygen, so my very being cries out for Him. And my lungs cannot exist without oxygen, so I cannot exist without His embrace. So I got to choose Him. As my heart yells for blood, mercy cannot exist without the flow of it. Oh my, how could I exist without Him? Would I not cease to pump? Would I not cease to be significant? Would I not just disappear unless it is for His embrace? I must have Him. I must have Him. I must have Him. In fact, he moves us into the abundance of the presence of Jesus in this last beatitude. I would be foolish to stand up here and talk about how I have sacrificed for Christ. And with Paul, when he lists those times when, in those times when he listed those things he had suffered for Christ's sake, he says, I speak like a fool. Because it's foolish. Because if I describe to you what I've sacrificed for Christ, I have to describe it in terms of I've not sacrificed, because it wasn't a sacrifice. There was no sacrifice. What did you give up for Jesus? Nothing. Nothing. Peter was so moved by this in one of his epistles, 2 Peter. He got so wrapped up in this because there was a group of people that had followed Jesus and then had gone away. And as he was moved by that, he went back to two proverbs, old proverbs. And he said, you know what they did? He said, it's like a dog returning to its vomit. What did you sacrifice for Jesus? Dog vomit. Can you imagine standing up this morning and saying, oh, I miss my dog vomit, but Jesus is worth it. What are you talking about? What did you give up? That's what you gave up. And you sacrifice? See, there is no sacrifice involved in this because he is so great and he is so fulfilling in the embrace. He is so, what's the words? He is so overwhelming that in the embrace of his person and being who you are in him, the fulfillment of your being in him, ladies and gentlemen, everything else, as bad as you want to describe it, is mere minor inconveniences. In comparison to the embrace of the person of Jesus. Oh. Now, he calls you in the midst of these minor inconveniences, he calls you in the midst of this persecution to rejoice and be exceedingly glad. And you'll remember that the word joyce is the root word chiro, which has the root word joy in it. And it's really not a high-tension word. It's kind of a mediocre term, actually. Rejoice, have a good time, don't get too loud. You'll disrupt the table beside you. So keep it cool. So rejoice, it's a minor term, meager term, which is why he adds onto it this, be exceedingly glad, which is two Greek words put together, meaning much to leap, which is the dancing term. So the idea is that you're to have joy, but suddenly it moves it into a whole new context of literally dancing. Just, oh, isn't this? Oh, I can hardly, oh, this is, woo, isn't this? It's dancing with joy and excitement, which I see you're not going to do this morning, which is okay. Now he says, when persecution comes, I want you to have that kind of response. And of course we look at that and say, oh, brother. But he gives us reasons. And we've been walking through these reasons. There's three of them, obviously, which is a good way the Bible's written. The first one is in verse 11. And it's the reason for the sake of Jesus. Blessed are you, verse 11, when revile and persecute you and say all kinds of evil against you falsely for my sake. And we spent a whole Sunday on that. Let me just remind you that you are to rejoice and be exceeding glad. And the reason you're going to do that, see, this is not like, it is a command, but it's not like you're to buckle down and pull this off. It's like this is going to happen within you. And the reason is because you've been captivated by him and it's for his sake. And persecution becomes a declaration of your intimacy with him. Why? Because you're being persecuted for his sake. Yes. That tells me I'm in. That tells me I'm in the embrace. That testifies to me that he and I really are one. That gives me the overwhelming fact that I really have joined him. See, that tells me that I'm in the fellowship. In fact, I've gone to the depth of the fellowship you can have with Jesus, which is the fellowship of the cross. I'm in the fellowship of his sufferings, that he has pulled me in to the ultimate intimacy. I'm joining him in his heart level. If all you're getting out of Jesus is blessings and blessings and blessings and blessings, and he just does all the nice things for you and all the miracles are created, you haven't joined him in the depth of who he is. And that's where you want to be. So I'm to rejoice and be exceeding glad. Why? For his sake. Second reason is in verse 12. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward. And I was tempted just to gloss over this one altogether because I was afraid that I'd get into it and kind of get bogged down and re-give the whole thing that we did last Sunday. Now, he's whacking us on the back, you understand, and he's giving us the eternal view of this. He's looking at us and saying, for great is your reward, which obviously is telling us, again, as we all know, that we are not to live in the temporary. We are not to have the short-sighted view. We are to live with the eternal view. Ladies and gentlemen, 10 million years from this moment, you will be. What do you want to be then? In fact, don't go that far. Let me ask you teenagers, in 25 years, what do you want to be like? What kind of person do you want to be? What kind of a dad do you want to be? What kind of a mom do you want to be? What kind of a person? How do you want to respond? What kind of maturity level do you want to have? How do you want to act? What kind of person do you want to be 30 years from now? Don't have the short-sighted view. Don't look at what's happening to this will pass. You can count on it. It will pass. We dealt with the evangelical view of the eternities, the heaven thing, reward stuff. All my life I've been taught that the rewards are streets of gold, mansions in the sky. The more I serve Jesus down here, the bigger my mansion will be. And if I really want a big mansion with brick siding, I should really probably come Sunday morning, Sunday night, and prayer meeting, and probably double tithe. That would probably get the bricks on. Because you're sending up supplies. And I tried to convince you that that concept, that view, that's awful. In fact, if you take that view and bring it into any other relationship, it's a negative. I tried to show you that in terms of my wife. I married this young lady. Why did I marry her? Had to have somebody wash my clothes. I didn't want to do it. And I certainly don't want to cook, and I know I don't want to do dishes. And it became legalized prostitution. And besides that, her dad had a plane, and I thought he was rich. And you would look at me and say, well, you're a gold digger. You just married her for what you could. Talk to me about Jesus. You're a gold digger, aren't you? And I tried to convince you that the ultimate of marriage is I married her because of her, and she is my reward. Wow. Wouldn't it be something if Jesus became your reward? You mean there aren't mansions in the sky? I don't know, nor give a rip. Because he's my reward. And if there isn't, he's enough. He's enough here, he's enough there. And it's so good here, I know it'll be good there. So it doesn't matter, folks. He can handle that because he's never done anything for me in my life but what was good, because in the embrace I find him. Oh, I find me. What do I find? I find fulfillment. He is my reward. Which brings us to the third. For the sorority of persecution, which again is verse 12. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Forgot to give you the word for. If you back up to the second reason, it's really important. If you back up to the second reason, which is, for great is your reward in heaven, you will note, of course, it starts with the word for. The Greek word there is the word hoti, which is literally the idea of because. It literally means an argument to which preceding words refer. In other words, he's saying, rejoice and be exceeding glad. Now, I want to argue with you why you should do that. I want to give you an argument of why you ought to do that. Here's the argument. And he gives this argument of, for great is your reward in heaven. That's the argument for why you should rejoice. Then he comes down to this third reason, which we're dealing with, the sorority of the persecution. For so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. For, there it is again, only it isn't the word hoti, it's the word gar, which is a causative particle. And the word gar literally assigns a reason for what has been done. So here you are, rejoicing and being exceedingly glad. Now, I gave you an argument for that. Now, I want to give you a reason of why it's done. You say, what's the difference? Well, you say to your child, do not touch the hot stove. He says, why? You say, 'cause I said so. That's an argument. That's an argument. Now, you're going to set him down. He says, why? You're going to set him down. You're going to show him pictures of a hand that touched a hot stove. You're going to describe the pain. This is a reason. On track? This is a reason. Here's the reason. For so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. He says, congratulations, you're being persecuted. You are in good company. Real good company. Real good company. You belong to a great group. Now, you need to see this through the eyes of the Jews that he's talking to in this Sermon on the Mount. Obviously, they lifted up, they honored, they adored, they highlighted the prophets of old. In fact, Jesus said in his last sermon preached that he said, what you do is you've brought the bones of the prophets into Jerusalem, and you've literally put them in the tombs, and you whitewashed those sepulchers, and those who travel from all across the world who come to Jerusalem for the feast days, they come, it's a spiritual pilgrimage. They come down to the graves of the prophets, and they bow there, and they honor the prophets, and this is where so-and-so, and they just, that's really a big deal to you, for you think the prophets are really, you say, well, if we'd have been back there in the days of our forefathers, we would have not done to the prophets what our forefathers did, not us, because you honor and you lift up and you think the prophets are the, whoa. He says, when they persecute you, I want you to know you're in good company. Now, you know that the prophets are distinct. And the reason they were distinct is because they were chosen. You got the priest, they're a dime a dozen. You got the priest, well, sure, they do the stuff. You got the priest, well, yeah, they're of the tribe of Levi. They're a priest. Why are they a priest? Well, they were stuck with it. Why? Because their dad was a priest, because they're of the tribe of Levi. So my dad was a priest, my grandfather's a priest, my great-grandfather's a priest, my great-great-grandfather's a priest. Hey, I'm a priest. What did you expect? They're the ones that light the candles, do the Sunday stuff, they do the everyday, make the sacrifices. They're the ones that maintain, turn the lights off, be sure the air conditioner's turned down. Priest, not the prophets. I'm a prophet. Oh, was your dad? No. Was your uncle? Nah. Did you go to the school of the prophets? Nope. I just sat in the corner and scratched my ribs. Wondered what was going on. How'd you get to be a prophet? Whoa. God came. I told him it was a bad choice. I tried to talk him out of it. Because I'm not the son of a prophet, and I didn't even go to church that regular. But he wouldn't let me off. And he chose me. And you could count on your hand. There's not that many of them. Maybe 4 hands. But there's not that many of them. These unique, spatial individuals who actually get to go and walk into the very presence of God and hear His voice and get close to His heart and know what He wants and take His message and go to the people and say, let me tell you, here is what God says. I'm not sure I understand it all myself, but listen to it anyhow. Here's what God says. And you deliver the very message of God. And do you understand, when I deliver the message of God as a prophet, the prophet says, you reject the message? You're not rejecting me. I don't have a dog in this fight. You're rejecting him. Because this isn't my message. This is his message. And listen, when you stone me, you're not stoning me. You're stoning him. And when you persecute me, you're not persecuting me. You're persecuting him. Why? Because I'm tight with this one that you're rejecting and you're throwing stones at. Because I've been chosen and brought into an intimacy with him. Now take that concept and bring it into the fullness of the new covenant. Oh, do you know what that means when you bring it into the fullness of the filling of the Spirit? Wow. It isn't just a few. It's you. It's you. You've been chosen to be where? Really tight. In on his heart. In on knowing what he wants. In on knowing where he's going. In on knowing what he thinks. You've literally been pulled in. John the Baptist was the last and the greatest of the prophets. He was filled with the Spirit from his birth all the way up. This boy was in, but wait a minute, he wasn't in like the new covenant. Do you understand that? He wasn't in like the new covenant. Not like you're in. There was a step beyond. Jesus is taking us to that in this whole persecution realm and in all the Beatitudes. Hey, in your helplessness, his unlimited resource. And in that embrace, you have an intimacy. You have a oneness. I want this from you. Please do not live on the edges of this thing, man. Go to the heart of God. You have the opportunity of living in the intimacy of his presence. See, a prophet wasn't just doing a thing. He was somehow wrapped up in the enterprise of the divine God. In this choosing, he was commissioned as well. And you know what it means to be commissioned? It's the idea that when you're commissioned, man, you have destiny. When you're commissioned, you have not just a job to do. It's not like that. It's not, brother, this is my responsibility. It's not a daytimer for the day kind of stuff. It's somehow you've been brought into this phenomenal. See a prophet. Well, why are you a prophet? Well, I'm trying to make a living. He wasn't interested in making a living. Did he make a living? Well, yeah. But that wasn't what he's interested in. That's not what he was doing as a prophet. Well, you're a prophet. Why are you a prophet? Well, I got my heart set on that big screen TV. If I can just save enough. That isn't what he's focused on. That isn't. He may get a big screen TV. I don't know. But that isn't. See, he's not just making a living. He's not just trying to live comfortable. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? This prophet has this sense of, what would you call it? A sense of destiny. Oh. You have that? I know this. You want that. Get up in the morning, go to the stinking job, come home at night, watch some TV, go to bed, get up in the morning, go to the stinking job, come home, watch some TV, go to bed, get up in the morning, go to the stinking job, watch some TV, go to bed, get up in the morning. Oh, it's Friday, it's Saturday. Whoa, hey, no wonder you go get drunk. Pass some to me, brother. I just thinking about it want to get drunk. Mercy. Isn't there this? Oh, God has called me. I get to be intimate with him. And in that intimacy, he's brought me into his heart. And I get to know, I have been commissioned. I've been actually filled with him. And I've become his flesh. And something is going on in me that's bigger than making a living or doing a job or pulling something off or get a bigger boat or whatever, man. I've got this destiny. I've got this direction. I know where I'm going and why I'm going there. Purpose and meaning. Got to have that, man. I got to have that. I'm telling you, I got to have that. I said I got to have that. And I think you do too. Don't quit your job, though. But I think you need that. And he wants to give you that. Which brings us to the last, which is the idea of the whole completeness. I got wrapped up in this Hebrews chapter 11. And I want to read that. I want you to read it with me, or at least look at it while I read it, which is Hebrews chapter 11, which is the idea of faith. And these are all tied together. Of course, the commission moves us into the completeness, and this whole thing just kind of dovetails together. But he talks about these great men of faith, and I'm going to use this, of course, again as a good opportunity to teach you about faith, lest you have forgotten. Faith is invoking the activity of the second party. So when a person is exerting faith in God, they're invoking the activity of the second party. I'm the first party. I've always invoked faith in myself. Yeah, because I've lived out of myself. I've handled my own thing. I've done my own thing. I've went my own direction. I've had a problem. I solved it. If I needed more money, I got a job and I earned it. I've always handled my own life. Hey, I'm the first party. So I've had a lot of faith in me. I've lived with faith in me because I've always invoked my activity, the first party. Now I'm going to move into having faith in Jesus, which is what? Invoking the activity of the second party. I'm the first party. I've always invoked the activity of the first party. Now I'm going to say, no, I can't, but you can, Jesus, so I'm going to invoke your activity on my behalf. So I'm not going to do for him, he's going to do through me. So the whole thing shifts, and faith in God is literally the invoking of his activity in my behalf. I can't, he can, I'm going to let him. So I become a platform which is constantly saying, oh God, I'm available. Would you do something through me that I can't do? So we've been talking this for It's the sourcing issue. It's the idea of I don't serve him, he serves through me. It's the idea of I don't live for him. It's the idea that he now lives through me. It's the idea that what's going on in my life is not spilling out of my resources. I'm living out of a resource that isn't mine. How can you be happy all the time? I cannot, because I'm a miserable person. But I'm invoking the activity of the second party, so he is living happiness through me, which puts me on a whole new level. See, I am totally helpless, so obviously you can't count on me, but it is an unlimited resource in that embrace. Whoa, his unlimited resource is spilling through me, and my response to that is faith, which just invokes the activity of the resource that he has now given me. So I'm living in that resource. So anything that's good, right, and proper that's happening in my life is happening because of him. So I'm living by faith, which is invoking the activity of the second party. Faith is invoking the activity of the second party. I said faith is the invoking of the second party. Wow. Could you live that way? He said there was a group of men who did. Look at this. And what shall I say? For the time will fail me to tell you of Gideon and Barak and Samson and Jephthah, also of David and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith subdued kingdoms, worked righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, became valiant in battle, turned to flight the armies of the aliens. Women received their dead raised to life again. Others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they might obtain a better resurrection. Still others had trials of mocking and scourgings, yes, and of chains and imprisonments. They were stoned, they were sawn in two, were tempted, were slain with the sword. They wandered about in sheepskin and goatskin, being destitute, afflicted, tormented, of whom the world is not worthy. You have joined that group. Oh, you've joined that group. You're not going to the mountain to get the message of God. God has literally come and filled you and lived within you and has given you his message and is giving his message through you. And in the embrace of his person, he is literally demonstrating his life. You're not doing it a few times. You're doing it in consistent life experience all the time, moment by moment. He's literally demonstrating himself through you, and the destiny of the display of his person has become yours. Rejoice and dance around. Now, the completion idea is that in this embrace, you begin to discover, the prophet began to discover the dream that God had for the nation. See, it moved from, oh, Jesus, I love you, you love me, woo, let's go sit in the corner, to, whoa, you have a dream for the nation. Well, that's nice, God, you got a dream. Well, it's your dream now, too. Oh, really? Yeah. And the prophet confronted kings. Did wild stuff. Confronted the enemy of the nation. Some wild-eyed guy by the name of Elijah ends up saying, come on, you guys, you prophets of Baal, all 400 of you, I'll take you on. Why? Because he'd caught the heart of God for the nation. Now, I'm telling you, if that's true for the prophet, nation is too big for me, sorry. How about this town? Could we take the city? Could we get a vision to take the city? Not build a big church, take the city. Well, don't we want everybody to come to our church? No. Do you realize if this whole town, 25,000 of them came to our church this morning, what trouble we'd have? In the bathrooms alone. This is take the city. Could we take the city? Would it be the heart of God? Is he sharing that with us? Take the city. Could we march into the city? Could we not, it sounds like march in and make them. No, I'm talking about, could a spiritual force and revival and movement become so strong through us in this city that, good night, the bars are closing up because they have no business. Can you imagine it? Can you imagine it? Could we take this campus over here? 500 students. Could we exert, we're right here, they're right there. Could we just all together exert enough spiritual influence that it takes that campus? It's the heart of God. Oh, brother, I can't do that. I barely get out of bed in the morning. I'm so depressed. Come on. See, you can't take the city. You can't find the heart of God until somehow you get into and it becomes destiny for you, and it just, I'm just trying to make a living, Manley. What's this got to do with persecution, Manley? Oh, that's easy. You see, right in the middle of the athlete who's just tucked the ball underneath his arm. Just can't imagine this, but you guys can. He's got the ball under his arm. He's twisted his ankle. I know. Pain, man. Maybe he's broken it, probably. You think he stops? He doesn't stop. Why? Because something so big, a ball wrapped in pigskin. The goal is so big. It overrides pain in the ankle. He's bleeding. I don't care. He's got the goal in sight. Do you think Jesus could become that big in your life until persecution became minor inconvenience in light of the heart of God? Oh, I love you, Jesus. You got to capture me like this, Lord. You got to capture me like this. I'm telling you. I've let all kinds of things get in my way and all kinds of things distract me. And I think of John's lesson this morning out of Hebrew and the honesty of his own heart and the whole business of my own hurts and in my helplessness. You've called me into the intimacy of your person. Sure, I choose you over myself. Why? Because I'm not me without you. I don't have a chance without you. I'm not talking doctrine here, God. I'm not talking theology. I'm not talking concept. I'm talking the reality of you and me and two persons getting together, you and me, until we are embraced and become one. And oh God, I don't know how to get that done. And the truth of the matter is I can't get that done. So I'm asking you, by faith, I'm invoking your activity in my behalf, that you would take me from where I am and bring me into where you want me to be, and that you'd begin to share your heart with me, and I could be a part of the company of men and women in this new covenant who are so powerfully designed by God, and who are so powerfully supplied by the divine, and who are so in the heart and tuned with the heart of God, that they have literally taken on the call of God and know the very destiny of the Father who's moving through them, and the completeness of the plan, your plan, for what you have for this hour and this day and this generation. Oh God, grip us with the possibilities that we have of oneness with you. Let everything else slide aside. All the other distractions. Pain in the ankle. That I might know you and your heart for my day. Heads are bowed. I know you want this. I know you want oneness with Jesus like this. I know you want intimacy with Him. I know that you don't want to flounder. You don't want to just make a living. I know that you want destiny. I know that. He's planted that within you. I know He's drawing you. Listen, there is no risk. If you think there's a risk in this, you're wrong. There is no risk. He's calling you. And ladies and gentlemen, you and I do not have to be like we are. We could be different. And I'm pleading with you in this hour. Oh, could we get so close to Him that the completeness of His mission, the burn of His heart for our town could become ours. Altars open. We're just going to seek together. How would you like to respond?